Shirley here with Jupiter point of Thales. This is a Venus hour and this is Saturn night. And of course, Venus has conjoined Saturn, um, now still retrograde. And this is about a degree, this is the degree she will turn direct in. It's last degree of Pisces with Saturn. And it's a great time to talk about the changes in religion that are happening at this time during the bisextile. I think the bisextile prompts that. Change like that we had at 45, but in a different way. Um, and the change of elements is going to be very significant around it. So I'm going to start with what prompted me to press record. And this is a short, so this lady, History by May, she travels the world alone, and she talks about Zoroastrians. Um, Two things she showed from this religion, this Yazid, right? Um, is one, a fire that has been still on since the 1500. So I guess they keep the fire on, which gave me strong Leo vibes. Thinking about fixed fire sign, that would be Leo. And it's also Sol, although the fire was hidden there, which is giving me Pluto Leo, is very likely way before that. We had such bisextiles again, at least a millennia ago, and um, here she talks about giving the bodies to the birds. So this is one of the religions and cultures where people would die, they would take them away from the city into a tower of silence and then offer the bodies um, of the dead people to the birds, and then they would put the remnants of the bones to compost in the soil. So this is element of air, particularly. Yes, can be Gemini, but here is more um, Aquarius. Okay, so Aquarius, you think about something that is, if the city, okay, the pyramidal structure, the city is Gemini, but you think about going up the mountain is the pyramidal structure. So, and giving giving the bodies to the birds, it can be at the edge of Capricorn. So, something between Capricorn and Aquarius, or Aquarius is basically climbing the mountain of Capricorn and leaving to the air rather than for underground. And so at this time, Zoroastrians migrated, some to India because of religious persecution. And at this time where we are having a bisextile, where Saturn and Neptune are going to be in Aries, Pluto in Aquarius, and the Neptune in Aries, yes. Uranus here is a revolution of something. Pluto is from the core, and Neptune is worldwide. It can be colonialism, but colonialism comes with cultural changes, with religious changes, and unfortunately, also religious persecution and cultural persecutions. Um, Thank you. And so my prediction is what religions will rise. So I predicted a lot about the types of Christianity that are more Protestant, even though Kant was, I think, Catholic. I'm not sure. Um, yes, I think the person who modernized Enlightenment more than almost anybody else when it comes to sovereignty and the individual ability, to think logically without encouraging all kinds of ritual abuse that we know of was Kant. And I was like, oh, but the father of almost atheism was a Catholic priest. Um, but Kant had a lot of the Aryan logos. Okay, if you want an alternative to Baphomet or alternative to the horn gods alternative to Satanism, and you want to maintain spirituality, and you feel like, well, the church is also doing those things, then the logos and the ability of a person to connect with the divine and say, I am a god or a part of the Godhead, without that getting them into hubris. I think some of the basis of Kantian thinking has a lot of good start when it comes to that. Um, and definitely, wherever we're going to be in religion, it's going to be less institutionalized because of all of these expeditions. Okay, if you're on a boat, yes, you can carry a cross with you, you can carry the Bible with you, but it's pretty much all you can carry. Some rocks, that's it. Um, you can't carry the priest with you, and you can't carry the church with you, and that is one type of loss of institutionalized Capricornian set of religion. Think about the structure, especially with the church. It was yeah. Think about the Baroque style there's a church in Cologne in that really emphasizes this really high ceilings. You look to the sky, but there's something very constraining, very Capricornian, very orderly in that structure. It's very beautiful, but when you go on an expedition, you basically can't do that. And with that supposed loss come also a loss of the institutional state, so much so that when we will reconstruct um, our political life or social life, but we would separate them, begin to separate the church from the state. So with that loss comes a new discovery, newfound freedom, newfound sovereignty, and not necessarily lost morals in comparison to the church. And then when you look at what is supposedly lost morals, you look at and say, well, unfortunately, that happened in the church as well. Um, so um, while absolutely there would be also an expansion of those structures in the beginning, but they would change, they would transform, their architecture would transform. Um, Again, I think about yes, St. Peter's Day, okay, with the clove, okay, the clover, symbolizing okay, the petals of the flower, basically symbolizing the cross, and the adjustment of the religion to the locality. So when we talk about the time of the apostles, I think we're going to have more such expeditions. Some of them are going to carry religious undertone, cultural undertone, to civilize society. It was very Gemini, and that is Uranus, but also to be civilized by society. Um, and that is part of the humbling that happens. You leave a place, you say, what, they put poop on the way they put the food, my God. Then you realize that their cow poop is actually cleaner than your soil. So you're, and they actually live outside the home. When the teenager lives outside the home, all community helps them to build housing. Um, but it doesn't happen in your community. In your community, you have homeless people. You tell them to get a job. so, so we are also civilized by society. It's an encounter. We're supposed to travel around. We're supposed to transform our spirituality. Now, the particular elements for this time of expeditions is a conjoining of air and fire elements. And so you want to think about even the Kantian logos was more isolated, went more to the Neptune, but inspired society in a way that is cannot be underestimated. Maimonides, he was exiled. Okay, but one of the things that are considered the pillars of scholarly Judaism and philosophy. If you want to Okay, not I will not speak in such terms, it's too blunt. But if you want to keep a person in Judaism, yes, that they're not like the fuck you do to babies, um, then speaking about Maimonides and the principle of the doubt as strengthening the faith and allowing place to ask questions, even a place to doubt God. And that is one of the things that kept Judaism alive during that exile, and he was affected by Sufi scholarly thought. So I was both thinking about medicine. A lot of people during COVID went to the Rambam, which is Maimonides medicine. This was a revival of Maimonides. He was, I don't remember exactly the centuries, so I'm not a Jewish philosopher. I was philosophically affected more by the Enlightenment, so hence I tend to ritual satanic abuse, because that is like the karma. Okay, is to correct the things. Like I was given a lot from those, basically those thoughts of those secret societies, not because I was part of them, and it's a part of that to try to correct the damage in the world that those things did um, as well. So definitely more Kantian based. We're going to have the exiled people, but the elements of the religion are going to be of air and fire. Even for the fact that we think that we are going to have to burn bodies again. In Israel, I think it was approved to burn a body recently. In Judaism, was not approved. You have to bury underground and not in a casket, but wrapped with clothes, so the body can disintegrate. It was supposed to separate the body from the this, but the body does disintegrate, right? Um, and then you will have a tombstone, so I guess that wouldn't come up. I don't know, but also to mark where the place that the person is buried. Um, but there's also burning and with the ashes. Okay, I can say one of my parents when I was a child, it's a very spooky thing to say, but it was like they like the open space, the open space, the open space. I say, well, when you die, I bury you, but I would burn your body and put it to the sea because you you're not going 6 feet under, okay? And and we are going to think about with Saturn is death, and Pluto is rejuvenating our perception over death. With Neptune, there's also going to be with different burials. Okay, um, if I think about the bisextile of 45, it was also with Leo. I don't remember the yes, I don't remember the other. It was Neptune and so on. I need to look at it again. But here definitely element of air, giving bodies to the birds, and there's a difference between giving living people to the birds. It shocks people, okay, that they outlawed the silent tower for Zoroastrianism as a difference between giving the bodies, okay, living people to the birds and giving the bodies, and that is a connection with the sky, and the sky element is going to be important. So whether it's a body, you burn the ashes and you scatter the ashes, or um, but here the element of air is not about scattering to the water necessarily, or maybe with Neptune it will bring oceanic element. I'm not sure, but definitely going up to. We are also preparing for the time for the 20 years of Aquarius are preparing us for the time of Pluto in Pisces, which was romanticism. I'm not talking about romantic comedy. Yes, for those of you who are not coming from learning about that time and those historical times, I'm talking about where the ocean. If you watch, I'm half Dutch, and when you visit the ocean, it looks like a foaming monster that's out to get you. That was That was, I understand why they feared femininity when I see that, to be very honest. Because that was a time where those oceans began to be a place where you come to visit. There began to be a place where you come to vacay, and carried an undertone of delving into the unconscious. So this is very Piscean, it's very Pluto Pisces, and the art that came there was hand in hand with the Enlightenment, and that is very important, because if we don't get that, I think we don't get the Enlightenment. Okay, and we can talk about ritual abuse all day. Ritual abuse exists since the Inuit. That is the story of Senna, by the way. Okay, she was trafficked, um, and her father couldn't save her from the ravens, okay, the birds, or the father gave her to marry a dog because he wanted, I don't know, some psychic powers when she marries, or I have no idea, but that definitely was not. Okay, that whatever spiritually the father was into was not okay. And at the same time, we can talk about the rich cultural traditions, um, and the wealth that it still brings to the world. So Sedna brought us the shamanistic principle that if you mm, the sovereigns in your society, regardless of gender, need to be honored. Otherwise, your society will have no food. And Inuit still today are dealing with food crisis. Okay, but also incest crisis, high suicide rates crisis, and they're kind of holding the weight of the world when it comes to a lot of these topics. So tending to Inuit society, and tending to those problems in our own societies brings in for all of us better life, okay, and and more food, because that can also be missing at these times. Um, More ways in which that can integrate. Well, definitely cities will be a part of that. We're going to think differently of cities where already even 2030, okay, the blasphemous project to have one world religion or something, um, with all the horrors that entail, the thought about the city is bringing a lot more green to the city. Okay, people think about how Singapore is designed and bringing a lot more green to the city. For many years in my lifetime, lived in a city called Ramat Gan, which has a lot of gardens and a huge park in the midst. Now the water was so polluted, and there was an entire project to clean the water. I wouldn't swim there today, but because the water comes to the Mediterranean Sea, okay, then that you do swim. Um, so clearing the water, but that water thingy is some sort of hidden thing that we are going to be addressing from the air. So we tended to reforestation during Capricorn, Pluto, during Uranus in Taurus. We're still doing those structures that can hold the water, and then we're going to go on air with structures that can hold the water, making water from the air, collecting water from the rooftops. Um, Actually, in Denmark, there is a lady that is doing communities. Okay, it's building communities, and she was asking, "What is your challenge about communities?" So one of the people from, I guess, from one of my countries, okay, from the Netherlands, says it's too much regulation. It's true. In the Netherlands, it's a lot of regulation, but we also don't have a lot of land. And the good thing is that they usually don't build above 3 stories high. There's been a lot of stress to change that. I think Netherlands is going to go into expeditions, um, and uh, um, and if there is actual land found that is not, conquered by tribe, I think it is also not necessarily a wrong thing to do. It's not unlike Dutchies or people that live in certain countries. It's like, well, we don't have housing, we're going to go to other countries to look for housing. Um, so that is normal. Yes, um, and and then there's the expedition, and the expedition will usually be a telltale for what will be. And now there's a lot of discussion about the Arctic. I think whatever is done should be very honoring of Arctic traditions, and at the same time tend to the housing. Okay, the housing situation that if you think like in Uganda, where a child already 12 years old has their own room, um, and to with the issues of incest and domestic violence. That's a very difficult issue. Okay, they can only talk about colonialism, but if you listened before 7th of October, before Sedna ingressed into Gemini, you would hear about them talking the real talks between Inuit. Inuit was not so viral yet, so you could hear the actual talks, so the suicide crisis and the connection to incest. Um, and this is unfortunately something that um, brings about those elite inbred secret societies that come to colonize. So for colonizers, it's good to tend to their own inbred societies. Um, I know that there, with the cloning comes biodiversity, is good, but also sandmen, if you know, you know, and those practices they can be a tremendous healing. I'm going myself through lineage healing for very likely exactly those things. It's not like we come from royalty or anything, um, but a lot of the costumes are also indigenous costumes. So even for the common person would have such lineages. My father's entire family, except for his brother, was wiped out in the Holocaust. My mother's my mother's father mother's father, and my grandfather. Um, and if I think, yes, only yesterday as I went to recovery as to certain things and certain costumes that is sometimes not in a Holocaust, but it's preferred even for entire family to be wiped out than for those things to continue. Um, yes, those are. Um, you talk about ritual abuse when you talk about those things. Yes, I know I talk about MK Ultra a lot, but this is based on the malefic result of those practices. Okay, you cannot separate MK Ultra from uh, um, secret societies, so Masons from Mormons, and and all that thing. I know Geert Wilders is talking about these things in Islam, and he has been living for 20 years in conditions that. I wouldn't be surprised if Nelson Mandela had better conditions. Um, so all we can say about the economic role of politicians is all true, but within that they still do and talk and say things sometimes are provocative, but those provocative things they are a doorway to things that cannot be spoken. And changes that need to happen in indigenous societies, and then it will happen in elite societies. Whether it's with the expedition, so a person has to go for expedition where the life is more free, okay, and and that is this time of expeditions and colonialism and those changes is time for structural changes. Um, You see, there are villages in Africa where people are now Christian. You say it's a good thing, it's a bad thing, but then there are also costumes that are outdated indeed, as well as in Christianity, and learning from one another's culture, which inevitably happens, and the cultural wars that are there are also tribal wars. Okay, I think a lot of and the city has a role in that. I talked about the fact why I don't like the concept of 15-minute city. Um, I do understand that people from Bedouin villages where I live, okay, I live in city of the seven wells now, okay, highly scorpionic. I have Pluto in Scorpio. And the people from the Bedouin villages would come to the city because they are sick of the village. And what they're sick of is not the village life of to wake up and watch the mountains or take a walk in the sea, or that's not what they're sick of. What they're sick of is the tribal wars. And one time we had the Soroka hospital, okay, in the city. Uh, uh, there was a tribal war, and what basically means 1,000 people fighting each other. This happens like in tribal society. It's People talk about Adolf Hitler and Mein Kampf, where he said it's perpetual war. He relied on tribal society, and he was talking about Aryan tribes, okay, not African tribes. So it's not that they're not civilized; it's that we as humanity need to have more peace. And I guess with cities is a different type of thing because it's a different type of crime. It's also organized crime, but it's just something different happens there. So the problems of the city and the problems of the village. Okay. Um, some people say for women safer in the cities. I don't know. Okay. I thought I feel nice. I thought I educated everybody not to ask a woman if she lives alone in a village. That's supposed to be territorially the greatest city in Israel, by the way. It's Arad. And I thought everything is okay. But apparently not so. But then surveillance and cameras just also in the city. So it's something where, and I'm a better person when I can take a walk in the middle of the night and watch the stars. Okay, this is better for the neighbors. It's better for me. It's better for everyone. And so eventually we're gonna have to contend with humanity, and it's humanity that needs to grow and become, more civilized to one another. And those problems are also engineering problems, which is very Gemini. So those engineering projects, you think about social engineering, Gemini is the planet of good or bad. Social engineering is also responsible for a lot of the charts that is a lot of my healing, by the way. I would not come to do episode I did about the true water expands upon cooling and all that without the social engineering. Okay, they're trying to recruit me. I didn't want. The reasons that I didn't want is the healing that I'm bringing, um, and I say to you, even the people inside, what you call reptilians. And I guess because you get so stressed, you get into your monkey mind that's reptilian. Okay, so but even those people, yes, we talk about the sleep state, then the healing of us as society is affecting one another. When when I was escaping therapy because they wouldn't talk about energy outside the room, okay, they said they don't know what's energy. I said I don't know what and threatened my life, and so they were very stressed because they were also electrocuted and so on. They went through a lot of torture, and um, and I said, "But who talks about energy?" And I hear my favorite musician, a politician. Um, okay, for people that big decisions, they know what's energy. So sometimes, even to the point, you can see what the energy that and the personality that a person is influenced by, whether it's in the singing or yeah, it kind of take on a certain form. Um, and yes, it is also the MK Ultra. You should not go about it with torture, but there's also a lot of healing that is being brought as we recover from those things, and we raise awareness that the training of our soldiers and our artists and even our spies um, should not be going all the way to torture infants. And and create a mind control and stuff like that. Because sovereignty is important to the health of community, whether you are China or Russia or United States or Europe or Africa or Greenland. Um, and telepathy that comes with Age of Air can bring a lot of conversations. Um, okay, it's just like in life, you want to have a very passionate love, and you want to have the freedom to be yourself within it, which I think we're going to embark onto in the age of air and fire. It's a young age, okay? Young, I mean hot, and has a telos, okay, has a direction, okay. It's not so much that yin, cyclical, and yeah, even the dance, thinking about the Nova party, became a mass ritual sacrifice of war. And that is like, oh, that is inhumane, this is barbaric, who does that? Well, our governments. Um, in plural, okay? So, Article 5, anybody? Um, but those are definitely also those people that says colonized. They're doing that. So they're doing those practices. This is the war practices, and um, and at this age, the danger is that people are going to have a lot more tolerance for that, which will end in mass death, and um, because which eventually will end in with the time where we had with the guillotine and the death of these practices, which is they're going to die with a lot of people, but it's the understanding that that's not a society where we want to live in. Again, it's ushering us to ages of Pluto entering Pisces, Neptune entering Taurus. So we are going to be the expedition, the cardinal expeditions are starting with Aries. Okay, this is the entrepreneurs. This is and I think it's going to be by air more so than by sea. But we also have the sea while Saturn is still. When Saturn leaves Pisces in 2026 with Neptune, then we'll see what happens. But you see those expeditions begin in Aries, and then they're going to uh, um, become, by land when Neptune gets to Taurus. So there's a lot of war that is kind of an excuse to go to expedition, but it's also the air and the fire. So right now, a lot of war, but also a lot of entrepreneurship. With Rao in Pisces, I think there would be seafaring expeditions with all that that entails. It's a very risky business, um, very lonely, but creates society. And then there would be the land grabs. You have to understand that the pioneer and the entrepreneur is Aryan. It's a different type of energy. It wants different things than the colonizers. Okay, for example, if I went to Greenland, I would want to innovate. Say, okay, what can we do here for the society that society needs, in a way that preserve for the good things in culture and innovates, or where it was difficult to get rid of a habit that is no longer outdated for that is no longer serving for the culture. Okay, so let's say what brings a society is not just colonialism but also incest. So building more houses, having more space, and having food security so that there can be inclusivity for the solitary person. And then, well, the discussion on sexuality, I think that discussion is rather open in Inuit society till today, I think. So this is only what I know from shorts in YouTube. If I would visit, um, then I would have these thoughts in mind. I would see how we can change things, we can build something new, we can create businesses that people are of the local business, that they run the business, and I would learn business practices from the Inuit. Okay, maybe there's a way to do business that is more relaxed. I would learn skills of how to fish, or how to worship. Okay, like I care a lot about Sedna, so how to worship a Sedna. Um, but then the colonizers would come to Taurus. Okay, they would want land, so they would want the comfort, the women. Um, and then if they mistreat the women, then you at the end of Taurus there's better per se. So that is off with your head, okay? But this is the understanding that the thought of the innovators, the Aryan, thinks different than the colonizers that will later arrive. And in Gemini we have a civil war about that. Okay, with the people that came to America, the America, okay, but the land, the indigenous land of America, what they said, okay, we're tribes like you are, okay, you killed each other, that's what everybody says, choked out, that's what's left, okay, the other ones killed one another, and but also there was uh, the people that first came, how they were greeted. Some of them were greeted with a lot of respect, but then came the colonizers, and the colonizers, they wanted land. The people that came, they were like, expedition, it's a new culture. Okay? They weren't even. Why? Because the areas as they had, you don't expect to even survive. And then with the colonizers, they already want the land. Now, with the way you treated the expeditions, a lot of them were treated with kindness in the beginning, some of them not. Okay, and then they were beginning to have discussions, or and that would be different people in different streams. Some would say we want to have shared community. Some would say we would come to kill them all. Okay, one tribe now for you're coming from Britain. Okay, one tribe kills everybody that comes there. Now you say, oh my God, be careful. They say we want them dead like flies. That's what they did to us because they're trying to escape what Great Britain. Also, when we talk about the economic hitman, the MK Ultra, the this, the that, okay, all those things about America that makes it challenging, not just to be American, but everywhere America arrives, because we're all dealing with a lot of the challenges of America, not anywhere near like Americans, and all of that is a colony that is it's not a colony, it's basically a pack of people that escaped colonialism and the heavy taxation of the kingdom on the land. That's it. That's Americans. America was founded by people who escaped Great Britain. What was Great Britain's colonialist empire? They said, okay, we're going to go with that. Then we're going to say bye bye because the taxes were too heavy. They wanted financial freedom. Okay, they needed no housing, no food, no this. Okay, you get on a plane. What do refugees do? Then they build mosques everywhere. So you say, what's that? Okay, what's this mosque thing? Okay, but it's nice food. Let's go eat. You fast a month? No, 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 thank you. Um, and begin to have a conversation. Will you sleep with your children? So are your leaders. Look how you treat the wife. Well, what is all this black nobility thing? How they treat the wife? Okay. And then we begin to have those shorts on YouTube. Yes, in Islam, a woman, she has her own bank account. The husband doesn't know, she own apartment. Even if they divorce, it's hers, and so on. No, no. This is you choose to wear this. You choose to wear this. Yeah, I can choose not to wear this. Try to walk outside the street without. and everybody arguing on your nails. No, this is not the whole issue. Is you're supposed to be modest, so you're not supposed to design or the beauty of what you're wearing and so on. And they had rings made, the nails made with rings, so they can take them off. So it is okay with religion. Um, but then people begin to have these discussions about things that they take for granted. What's these things you do into your baby's juice? If you don't, you talk about this done to women, for why do that to men? Okay, and I can tell you as a person that has had friends that were married and having baby. One time I was when they cut the baby. I said, "What is this?" It is the mother, the breast from the mother's milk begins to drip because she's in stress, and the baby is in such stress. It's like, what is that? And the rabbinical institutions say we don't need that. The people need that. No, they don't need that. People go about, okay, the traumas, the way you recover to your initial trauma and so on and so forth. People have traumas from that. And no, it doesn't stop like what we call it, adultery or rape or no. Actually, the other way around, because people can feel challenge. Um, yes, those things are built on dissociation, challenge, shame. So that is, yes, we are all going to question things in our culture. And sometimes, if it doesn't go by, you think about burning the bride alive with the broom, okay? A habit that the colonizer says, stop, we don't do that. But then they burn the witches, okay? So it's kind of, we are having cultural wars, and that's okay. Like, we should be, Eris is about that fiery discussions. Like, yeah, I can question that. I can say, well, that is wrong. It's the courageous fire that takes tradition and says this is good from tradition, that's not good from tradition. And the air element allows us all the dissociation from the emotional baggage of these things, both from the trauma. I am recovering from things that happened in um, um, to people of my people in Brussels, in Netherlands, in okay. For the Israeli part, I do not know yet. In places, okay, and um, that recovery sometimes happens in the sleep state. That astrology and the talismans work in a way that is upright. Um, with telepathy, with the obscurity, okay, so the obscurity around identity that allows love, because you reconnect with your heart. Um, and the understanding that happy, loving people don't do ritual abuse, rape, torture. Um, when I said that in 2017, I was tortured. Yes, so so cut me some slack. And, um, wait, and so this is understanding that we're all going to have. It's not for nothing that one of the main figures that have been blowing the whistle on those things is Anneke Lucas. Her book was called The Quest for Love. It is indeed. Okay, when you don't have that love, then try to try to go around and in many ways try to recover your sexuality and connect with your heart, and then it gets a big overwhelming distress, which is important to tend to that as well. Um, when you have love, and I mean love, okay, love. Um, whether it's romantic love or not romantic love, the ability to feel loved, um, that is something that, yes, it's not just healing, it's our eyesight is seeing the world clearly. I know from, I've been a great Feynman fan, and he talked a lot about what the most important thing is. He said laughter and human compassion is a form of love, but really about the way having love, you see the world, and he was a scientist, so he's speaking about the science, and I think this is very true. People talk about the question of evil. I've worked on charts of people that said they're pure evil, um, and but and that is, yes, it can be very painful for when a person has their own range of being, um, and but to stop that ritual abuse, then is basically connecting with the ability to be loved and feel love, and to be loving, right? To be loving, you need to feel loved. Um, and so, and we all tend to do that. If somebody, yes, if you rapes you, then you say, okay, that you don't feel loving for them, right? Um, we need to have that autonomy and sense of heart. To develop that sense of heart, we need to have the sense of heart to develop that autonomy. That's why the sonic salts in Aries. But that is that governs a lot, and we have to remember the sonic salts in Aries. That's the heart. So, what our religion, our culture, our traditions should be supportive of us being able to love and feel loved and be loving. That's it. So yeah, that is in terms of what religions or what other things. I'm not a theosophist, so but I predict to see element of air and fire, and the fire burial, but also I predict there to be more humane about death. Um, because Aries is, I will fight, I will this, I will that, be a man, da 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 da, walk into the fire. We're gonna have that too, unfortunately, but you also have to have a sense of walking into the fire in order to do. Let's say what I do. Yes, some people say, oh, if I would have like something to take my life away, then I wouldn't be doing that. No, I would have that to with me, and I would be doing even more. Okay, so that is we got there's a sense of walking into the fire as being courageous, and that unfortunately with Neptune can be taken to the extreme, but the air element here is also the thought, okay, the space behind the thoughts. If the cardinal fire is the idea, then the space behind this idea, what we call ideology, um, and the applied form of that, which is Gemini, that allows us to mitigate the fire. Air is needed to keep the fire alive. This is not the fire of Sagittarius. Sagittarius is the religious persecution, I think more so than Aries. Aries is like, Baphomet, okay, let's look at what it says. Juxtaposition of polarities, fantastic, what's wrong about that? Or you sacrifice babies to and torture them. Uh, Can we do without that? I mean, there are other, like if Baphomet is so antichrist, then it's not. It's probably okay with bringing like another form of divinity when we can conjoin with, oh, like in astrology you had Venus and Mars, Cephesus. I would not say what the colleague said about Mars, but let's say that Mars is. You don't work with Mars alone, right? You work with Mars and Venus. You don't work with the Moon alone. Okay, otherwise you would go verrückt, you would go crazy. Um, so why would you work with Baphomet alone? If you work with Baphomet alone, then we have ritual sacrifice, which is completely unnecessary, completely unneeded, and we can get a lot of the benefit of juxtaposing polarities and getting out of religious constraints and outdated notions of morality without torturing babies and bringing mind control, which is the antidote of the liberation that supposedly Lucifer comes to bring, which is enlightenment. A mere suggestion.